Hello from the One True Scale. This video is in my series of holiday display windows with moving trains and planes in N scale. It covers setup, operation, basic and advanced maintenance of this train set inside a baker's 26 by 18-inch sheet pan. Instructions are specific for the bakery staff, but will be helpful to anyone constructing a similar layout, especially with older rolling stock. Getting fussy old N-scale trains to run 24/7 for a week at a time with people sensor stop-start operation was a big challenge. I described most of this video in a sequence of events style. Sequences may vary depending on what you're trying to do, so please use your judgment. Also note that many of my pictures were taken out of sequence, so concentrate on what I'm saying, not summer turning to winter. The display usually runs 2 weeks before and after the seasonal holiday. Everything for the display is stored at the bakery. Bring the sheet pan from storage by itself. It should have nothing stacked on it. The parts are delicate, handmade, and expensive, so handle with care. Then get the boxes for the trains, the electrical, the old season, and the new season. Ideally, always use this table, marked train set, underneath the nearest corner. Using the two marked shims and block, shove the table into the corner exactly as shown. One table edge will almost touch the Cole Street window. Plug in the power strip and wrap around table and chair as shown. Don't bother with the cable ties. Outside above the door there is an infrared people sensor. It's mounted upside down on a pivoting shim. Pivoting inside makes it less sensitive, outside more sensitive. A small bracket keeps the sensor cord in a slot so the door won't damage it. Make sure that the cord is not damaged and that the door cannot slam it. On the inside, untie the plug end of the sensor cord from the wall. The plug side has a small screw which should set its timer for 60 seconds. If the sensor is missing, try and find it and remount it, otherwise contact me. Turn the power strip off. Plug the timer into the power strip exactly as shown. The cord should barely reach, but should not lift up the power strip. The train layout is stored like this, with no heavy loose objects such as trains which could damage scenery and people. Flexible cords and trees are carefully pushed under the cover before it closes. Place the controller slider on the windowsill. Remove the sheet pan cover and shove the train set into the West Cole Street window and corner. Carefully remove the old season scenery by lifting up the track and removing the 4 corner modules. Note that the corner numbers correspond to the hands of a clock viewed from Cole Street window. Any other loose items like trees and freight car loads should go into the plastic food containers. Carefully close the box and redo the blue tape. Open the new season box and reverse the process. Viewing my original video with the later seasons might help any confusion, although there might be new seasonal changes not covered. Plug the controller power supplies into the people sensor timer. Plug the brown layout power cord into the controllers as shown. Make sure that the slider can be slid all the way without the power cords damaging scenery. Get the bubble level out of the toolkit. The track isn't perfectly flat, so put the level on the section of street as shown. If necessary, adjust the table shims until it is level. Set both controllers to on, direction left, and full power as shown. Test all the electrical connections by turning the power strip on. Whether there are people or not, the power strip will give you a few seconds of power. The green light of both controllers should turn on. The sky cover should be placed to protect the layout from dust and children. It rests on a small metal bracket in the window corner. It should fit snug against the glass and the layout edges. Some holidays have signs to put up with double stick tape. Signs or cards can also be useful hiding the controls and tools. Store signs come and go and sometimes interfere with the view of the displays and have to be moved. The Parnassus window bench should not be directly in front of the display, or children will stand on it and bang on the window. A stall of one or both trains is almost the only reason to have to do maintenance. If maintenance has been done within a day, a possible quick fix may be to turn up the power supplies and shake the sheet pan lightly by tapping low on the sky cover. If tapping doesn't work, prepare to do at least 20 minutes of basic maintenance, which should be done anyway weekly. Remove the blue sky cover and put it on a chair out of customers' way. To focus on tasks and avoid back strain, put a chair for yourself in the nook. Slide the controller tray into view. From the toolboxes, take out the loose items shown. You'll have to use your brain a bit to figure out how much basic maintenance to do. First, make sure you've got electricity for these steps. Turn the power strip off and on to make sure you get the green light on the controllers. If okay, remember that you only get power from 4 seconds to 60 seconds, depending on people. If you need constant power, take the beige block with 2 power supplies and plug it directly into the power strip. Since the power strip is 110 volts, for safety, turn it off first before unplugging and replugging. There is no similar safety concern about the controller connections. Input and output are less than 14 volts. This applies to the tracks too. Touching 14 volts won't hurt you. The controllers have circuit protectors in case something conductive shorts the track. Removing the short and turning them off and on resets them. Derailments can be frustrating. Derailments cause train stalls, but they can sometimes be simple to fix. I don't have video, but here trains are running normally. Next, I think all 4 brown cars disconnected from the small engine. Then the engine kept running until it hit the back of its own train. The collision pushed 3 cars into the graveyard, but 1 into the oncoming train, stalling both. Model train collisions look dramatic, but are so slow that even delicate parts are rarely damaged. Fixing this was as simple as guessing the order of the cars of the small engine train and re-railing it with its freight loads. Re-railing on street-like tram track is actually a lot easier than track with rails and ties. Just gently push trains sideways until the wheels drop into the slots, then push together to recouple. Unlike freight cars, engines won't roll without damaging the mechanism, so instead move them by lifting. Here's a different derailment that was more of a Halloween catastrophe. Engines, freight cars, and loads were scattered all over the place. Re-railing a wreck like this probably means attending to coupler issues in the advanced section. Dust is always there. Dust on the rails reduces the electric current and is the main reason for train stalls. Without the blue sky cover, dust blowing in from the door can stall the trains in less than a day. Even with the cover, enough dust gets in that track and trains must be cleaned at least once a week. Important dust reducers are these wipers made by Woodland Scenics called dust monkeys. They are snapped to the wheel axle of the last car of each train. To fit them on these tiny freight cars, I had to cut off 1 coupler pocket. The 2 black spots are about a week's worth of dust on the rails. Gently brush off the dust from both trains' dust monkeys. It's hard to clean the track with the trains in the way. If you take the trains off, try to duplicate the order of the track, direction, and cars for putting them back on. The freight cars can roll off the table and break, so lay them on their sides. One good trick is to just take the engines off and push the freight cars around for cleaning. This handheld track cleaning tool from Woodland Scenics is called the Rail Tracker. It comes in a kit with various pads and cleaning solution. Only use dry, white or black felt pads. The white and black rubber abrasive pads are for aggressive cleaning and can damage track. These pads can take 5 times more dust before they need to be flipped or replaced. Look carefully at the track rails before cleaning. Using reflections, you can often notice the dull dust buildup compared to shiny, clean track. The plastic under the track rail is delicate and not solid, so don't press down hard. The weight of your arm should be adequate. I show the rail tracker being used sideways sometimes, but there's too much danger of damaging scenery, people, and cars. It's safer to just use it in the rail direction. Try and do an equal amount of cleaning on each section. Then go back if you notice any remaining dull spots. Clean tunnel track by carefully pushing one end of the rail tracker, or by removing the paper tunnel upwards, which is delicate and fussy. Some particles that stall trains come from dirty scenery. Some dust settles on the scenery, but a bigger concern is loose bits of grass or tree scenery getting caught in train engine mechanisms. Clear out any loose scenery by blowing hard through a straw. Start from the center of the town and circulate outwards, so that everything is blown outside the rim of the sheep pan. Give special attention to crevices like town alleys, rail troughs, and sheep pan rims. Nothing shows you care like cleaning your engines once a week. Dust and debris can cause problems in many parts of the delicate mechanisms. When engine wheels roll over dust on the rails, electric current can melt it or make it stick to both wheels and rails. Here you see a thin dark ring of dirt close to the rim of all 6 wheels. Cleaning and testing engines requires full electric power. Use techniques described earlier to make sure power stays on. Set the Minitrix engine cleaner on the track as shown. Its copper cleaning bristles have contacts for the plus and minus rails. I modified this one to work with tram track by sanding off a millimeter so the copper strips touch the rails. When using, always hold the cleaner steady on the rails as shown. Hold the engine to the bristles as shown with the weight of your right hand. The turning wheels will try to move the cleaner, so hold the cleaner in your left hand, which I couldn't do taking a photo. If a good engine doesn't run, either there is a break in electrical contact, or you skewed the engine enough to short the plus and minus bristles and have to reset. If the controller green light isn't on, turn it off then on to reset the circuit breaker. It's easy to see the wheels of the little engine cleaning themselves on the bristles. I speed up and distribute the cleaning by moving the engine back and forth, but I couldn't show this with one hand holding the camera. How long to clean depends on a lot of things. I do 30 seconds with engine facing one way, then 30 the other way. The dark dirt rings on the wheels are gone, replaced by light dull rings, which is just normal metal wear. Notice also the 6 thin copper strips between the wheels and the plastic gear housing. If dust or lint is blocking these electrical contacts, carefully use a brush or a clean knife blade to get it out. Now to the big engine. It has similar parts to clean, but is more complex. Each set of 4 wheels is held in a frame called a truck. Each truck has similar parts to the bottom of the small engine. The trucks swivel when the engine turns, so there are extra copper strip contacts between the trucks and the metal chassis halves to clean with a brush or knife if they collect dust. Only one truck at a time fits on the cleaner, so cleaning takes twice as long. The trucks hide the turning wheels, so you have to sense the vibration and a little forward pull. The trucks bumble around and easily cause shorts, so restrain the truck by holding at one end. When done, clean the cleaner bristles with the long brush. Do this upside down so the dirt falls out. Besides putting trains back after derailment, there are other techniques to train arrangement. The trains are British, but the town is American, so run trains on the right side. The big engine with trucks handles tight curves better than the little engine with its long wheelbase. Put big engine on inside track, little engine on outside track. Engines run in the same track direction even if you swap their ends. But swapping ends makes the mechanisms run in the opposite direction. This is actually useful to balance wear and to unstick dust and lint. Try to remember or write down the train arrangement of the last running period. Then switch them for the next. Big engine was fan rearward should swap to fan forward. Small engine was windows rearward should swap to windows forward. In many countries, for at least 100 years, model trains have been designed to be operated safely, even by children. However, this model train display is set to operate automatically whenever power is on and people are detected by the sensor. The display is unattended. The bakery staff don't notice the condition of the trains unless they go outside and check on it. Although contained in an aluminum sheet pan, most of the train set is not fireproof. So I've given a lot of thought to conditions that could generate heat. Any conditions would involve shorting the 12-volt current. Metal across the rails, like a pin or staple, could cause a short. This short can also happen when an engine derails skewed across the track, because all wheels on one side of an engine are electrically connected. In 40 years of model railroading, I've only once seen a short derailment cause some smoke and melt a wheel. This was with old controllers that didn't shut off the current. I've seen the new controllers in this display shut off their circuit breakers in a few seconds if a short happens. In addition, the power strip has a fuse, and the building has circuit breakers and a sprinkler system. And the display electronics has testing lab certifications from either the US, Europe, or Japan. Even with all that protection, I recommend that the train display be turned off during closing hours. At closing, the bakery staff should either turn off the power strip or unplug it. Since the bakery is open every day, an alternative would be to get a programmable timer. Advanced maintenance is stuff a little beyond what bakery staff might be able to do. Even so, it's good to view this section in case you see a problem that requires advanced maintenance. If so, it's good to get help from a model railroader like me or someone who has similar hobbyist experience. Solving coupler issues definitely isn't for bird brains. I mentioned before that coupler issues can cause train derailments, and that it's best to pay attention to coupler issues when rearranging the train. Coupler issues aren't so technically complicated, but they sometimes require a lot of patience to sort out. The problem is that the couplers on these British cars designed in the 1980s aren't that precise. But I don't yet have modern four-wheel short cars that I can replace them with. These cars have the standard N-scale claw coupler held in a pocket by a lightweight spring. This coupler is loosely held in the proper position, while this one is twisted and almost falling out, which usually causes the spring to pop out, but replacements are available online. After a messy derailment, try to get the cars back to the arrangement they were before. If you have found a good arrangement, it might help to lightly mark the ends of the cars in pencil, like A to A, B to B, etc. Even exactly rearranged, some of these fussy couplers might behave differently, so check coupler compatibility. All four coupler pairs on the brown train look good. They connect symmetrically and at the same height. On the gray train, only the middle coupler pair looks good. The other pairs couple at different heights and might let go of a car. Sometimes gently tensioning and relaxing the string of cars can even the couplers out. If not, you might have to sort high couplers with high and low couplers with low, patiently arranging the best pairs amongst all the available cars. Engine lube is getting dirty in a very scientific way. Many model trains made today don't require lubrication. You should check this in their instruction manuals. I think they use high-tech plastics that can take a lot of wear. My unneeded 20 to 40-year-old model trains that I use for these displays definitely need lubrication. I forgot that this old steam engine with all brass gearing needed lubrication. It ground its brass gear teeth into the fine gold powder you see. For the amount of use they're getting, they should be lubricated once every season. So the lube toolkit can be kept in a setting up box. The kit includes grease, oil, applicators, and wipers. I'm no expert, but I use lube between any moving parts that aren't conducting electricity. Oil flows while grease mostly stays in place. I grease open areas I can reach or get the engine mechanism to distribute. I lightly oil surfaces in close contact, like shafts and holes, relying on capillary action or wicking to distribute. Excess lube that isn't wiped off attracts dust and lint, which can stall or wear out the mechanisms. On the little engine, I could expose more mechanism to lube if I undid the right screws, but engines are built like watches, so I rarely do that unless absolutely necessary. I put a lot of grease in the gear I can see, run it on the track a bit to spread the grease to 3 gears I can't see, and repeat if I miss something on the visible gear. I push the grease deeper in with the pin, but am careful not to scratch the plastic. Most N-scale engines have a worm gear somewhere. It looks like a screw and turns a normal gear with a big reduction equal to the number of gear teeth. But worm gears have lots of friction, so grease is important. Carefully sneak some grease to the worm without getting it on the wheels. Then run the engine around the track to distribute. Get a small drop of oil by squeezing the bottle slightly upside down. I tried to use the part seams to wick some oil into the wheel axles, carefully avoiding the 6 copper strip contacts. When done, remove all the grease and oil you can with lint-free cloth. The big engine has similar mechanism to the little engine, just more parts and different ways of getting to them. Grease the 4 visible gears the same way, carefully spreading it inside with a pin and running it on the track to distribute. Small drop of oil on each side of each gear wicks into the wheel axles. Wipe excess lube with a lint-free cloth, probably not with a Q-tip. Note I've been using a cloth to protect the body paint from scratches. Remove the chassis from the body shell to access more lubrication. Body shell is thin and can be flexed in the middle a little to unsnap. With fingernails you can flex the body slightly and the chassis will drop out. Or carefully use flat toothpicks to spread the shell and lift the chassis out of it. Some shells only go on in one direction. The big engine has a worm gear high up on each truck, turning the wheels through 3 unseen gears. Grease the entire surface of the worm, run on the track and re-grease any missed spots. Wick a drop of oil not shown into the 3 axle ends of the unseen gears on each side of the truck. Also into both ends of the worm gear shaft. Repeat all this for the other truck. Undoing the 2 side screws could give better access by splitting the chassis. I didn't see the need to do this, but you must do this if the motor brushes or motor fail. After final run around the track, remove excess lube. A Q-tip helps here despite possibly adding lint. The shell should go on very easily and snap all the way down. Since the bakery has a tram a block away, I definitely wanted to use tram track. In Japan, both Kato and Tomix make tram track, but Kato Unitram track is slightly too big to fit in a baking sheet pan. This is all the Tomix track you need, including the wiring, but not the controllers. I used the normal track it left only for a parking track. The tram track looked and worked pretty well. The rail only protrudes 0.5 millimeter higher than the street, and on each side there are ruts for the wheel flanges. I suspect that these normal tram features allow dust and lint to settle on the rail surfaces more than normal tie track. For better access to the track, first get this paper clip out of the toolkit and pry up the left end of the town center and lift it carefully out of the way. Remove the tunnel lifting upwards, and if necessary, remove the entire track out of the sheet pan. I had problems with my first set of track and pretty much wore it out. Engines had stalling issues in certain spots. I thought it was due to track joint unevenness. I tried to fix this by aggressively using the abrasive rubber pads of the rail tracker. I probably pressed so hard that the springy plastic allowed the rails to go below the street surface. The stalling issues might have been cleaning fluid seeping into the rail joints. Ruining this track taught me to only use dry felt pads and gently. The underside of the track with power connections looks like this. Inner and outer tracks are joined by lots of snap-in U-shaped pieces. I considered gluing most or all of this together, but that would have made replacing a single track impossible. The track snaps and unsnaps now as double track. Close-up shows normal current conducting rail joiners, but also plastic aligning snaps. If you have to move the track, be very careful about it. You can move it in one piece, but remember there's track joints, and if you lift it up, try not to snag it on anything, especially where there's a track joint, because you could bend the connections or bend the rails where the rails go straight through. So try and reduce the stresses on it. To put the scenery modules in, the corner scenery modules, you only have to lift the track a little teeny bit and then slip it under, like that. So that shouldn't be any problem. But if you really have to do any track maintenance, like I show later, you probably have to lift the whole track up. So here's how I do it. You can either take it like this and just be careful about what to snag it on. Move it somewhere, maybe tip it up or tip it upside down. Now see, that's interesting. It bends more upside down, so you got to be especially careful. Because of that, I think maybe an even better way is to take it from the middle and let one side always be resting, and carry it like that. This doesn't, let's say you're taking it to a table in another room or something. This doesn't seem to cause any problem. And then when you set it down, set down one end, and see, I'm not bending things too much here. Just set it down like that. I think those are the best ways. To unsnap the track, set it on a flat surface and hold it firmly flat and wiggle sideways to try and get the connections unsnapped. And once they're all unsnapped, pull it apart only as far as you need, okay? And then do the other side of the track if it's a circle, to put it back together. Line up the tracks, push gently to try and get all connections started, and like a little wiggle helps here. Okay, I've got them all started, and now I can just wiggle them until they're all snapped. And there it is. Undo the other side. The track power connector comes with a track set. On one end it's got a white plug that fits into the controller. On the other end, a gray plug with contacts that fits into the track. You turn the track over. Each piece of track has a place to snap this thing in. The direction the train runs when you set the controller to forward is determined by which way you snap it in, wire to the left or wire to the right. I'm going to snap it in this way. Just press down and dress the wire so it goes out a nice exit path, and use a little tape to hold the whole thing in, and then just turn the track over, and that's how I have it. If you ever have to remove it, just reverse the process, take the tape out. You can unsnap this thing by prying on the lip there, and there you go. There's some complexity about this track. There's these two curves here, and they look pretty much the same, except this one type has the rails broken where the plastic breaks, and this one has the rails going straight through where the plastic breaks. And okay, so that's important, because what if something went wrong with this section of track? Maybe I smashed it or with something, and I got to replace it with a new one. Well, the first thing I'd do would be disconnect it from the rest of the circle, which is basically like that. But I can't pull this one apart because the rails connect. So what I really have to do is flip the thing over and take out these 4 little U-joints. Let me try and focus on those. Okay, so they're easy to take out. Little U-shaped things. They have a very complicated shape though. Okay, once you got them out, these two pieces are separate. Okay, and that means I can now get this one free, because it does have a crack there. So I'll just wiggle, and that one's free. Okay, so then I would get a new piece of track. I would put this in, wiggle it together, turn the whole thing over, line it up, get the U pieces. Let's see if I can show you this way. And you got to get them just right, just in the center of the crack. Okay. And let's see. I'll do the ends first, and then the middle should be easier. And I usually try and make sure the track is flat, and then sort of tighten the U-joints by pressing down this way. And then flip it over. It all looks good with the new piece of track. And then rejoin it to the circle with the wiggle technique.
We hope you have enjoyed this training.